Mad Max movies are such an interesting species. They spawned an entire subgenre of film. But what makes a good Mad Max movie? Awesome car chases, great villains, and of course, Max. But have you ever wanted a Mad Max Game of Thrones with no Max and a bland villain? Well, here's Furiosa, a Mad Max electric boogaloo. Furiosa is the origin story of the character of the same name. In Fury Road, she was played by Charlize Theron, who, let's be honest, looked about as scary as a Karen complaining about her tepid soy latte. This time out, we get Anna Taylor-Joy, whose steely glare made me worried she'd gut me for giving the movie a bad review. Well, little Furiosa is doing just great, plucking peaches in the last green land on ruined Earth, when she's kidnapped by marauders, as happens in a Mad Max movie. And after that, it's basically Disney's Solo, where we learn how the hero got all the cool stuff we saw in a better movie. And that's basically it. Okay, so we've already negated one qualifier for a Mad Max movie, i.e. no Max. The rest of the thing had better be pretty spectacular. So what about the villain? Villains are awesome. In the past, we had Hugh Keys-Byrne's poetry-spouting toe cutter, hockey mask-wearing Humongous and his horde, the dual threat of Master Blaster with a dwarf riding on a glistening golem, Tina Turner's hair, and the shiver-inducing Immortant Joe, once again played by Hugh Keys-Byrne. This time out, we get a hook-nosed Chris Hemsworth as Dementus, auditioning to be a dumber version of Love and Thunder's Thor. As if that's possible. So a bland doofus of a villain. Strike two. But the action's gotta be pretty great, right? This is, after all, the director that gave us pole vault psychos and a testicle-headed flamethrower guitar-playing Megadeth album come to life in the last movie, right? Sorry, no luck. Apparently they ran out of awesome ideas in the last flick and dredged up the B material. Bland, repetitive car chase scenes, CGI backgrounds, flat cinematography, and a color palette that thinks beige is the height of visual excitement. Alright, well, let's look at each of these things in turn and see what works, what doesn't, and how these items could have been fixed. First of all, the characters. Furiosa here is a lot better of a character than she has any right to be. She's even better than Max was in the last flick, though that's not hard. Here we see an optimistic, sheltered little girl struggle to become a kick-ass warrior, and it does it in a way that bucks the modern trend of Mary Sue's. Furiosa fails, falls, and learns hard lessons. She makes difficult decisions and earns her strength, both physical and inner. By the end, we empathize with her, feel her rage, and want her to get some good old dick-kicking revenge. All delivered with a grounded, intense performance from Anna Taylor-Joy, with an intensity rarely seen from the masses of pampered Hollywood-be starlets blanding their way through air-conditioned roles and whimpering about their struggles. Well, Tom Burke is here as Praetorian Jack, and he's a guy I could see in a Mad Max streaming series. If he upped his swagger game, he could easily rival Mel Gibson in the part and steal the show. Which is more than I could say about Tom Hardy, who gave the gruff, but never got the point of the role as much as we would have hoped. Burke has the charm to pull it off, and as Furiosa's mentor, he's a combination of the original flick, where Max still had a soul, and the hard-bitten Fury Road version. But you need a great villain to make a good Mad Max movie. And smack me with a hammer, but what was anyone thinking hiring Hemsworth to play a Mad Max villain? The guy's entire career hinges on him being a likable, handsome, leading man. And I'm sorry, but he's not a good enough actor to stretch this far. Asking him to play a cannibalistic wasteland warlord is like getting Tom Hanks to replace Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. It just doesn't work. And it's not helped by bringing back Immortant Joe to embarrass the doofus at every turn. And his character could have been eliminated with a few simple rewrites and avoided the whole problem. Which brings me to the story. Okay, this is basically a revenge tale. Little girl gets kidnapped. Something bad happens to her loved one, and she spends her life dedicated to making the bad man pay. Pretty simple. We've seen it a million times. We know it can work. But the problems creep in pretty early. As it's currently written, the entire movie could have ended at 20 minutes in if one lady hadn't stopped for a teary goodbye. And no, I'm not exaggerating. There is literally a moment when a character who knows that seconds mean the difference between life and death stops for a full 3 minutes to give a teary goodbye speech and have a big ol' hug. I timed it out in my head, and if she had not done that one stupid thing, the rest of the movie would not have happened. And there's a scene where Jack, Praetorian Jack, doesn't realize he's fallen into a trap that any third grader could have seen from a mile away. Or there's Dementus, okay? Secretly digging a 100-mile-long sunken roadway to attack an enemy. And I thought that was pretty clever, what with him wetting the dirt in front of his army so no one sees the rising dust in the distance. Until I thought about it for a second. What's he wetting the dirt with? Is it water? I thought that was pretty scarce. Is it gasoline? Wouldn't that fill the swale with fumes and eliminate what few brain cells his army had left and leave them drooling in a pile of their own vomit? And this is another of those times when Immortan Joe embarrasses simple Thor and makes me cringe at how pathetic this new villain is. And don't even get me started on Furiosa's mech arm.
I was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps!
But that's not this movie's universe. And if you want Game of Thrones style political struggles, just have the leaders of the three presented kingdoms struggle for dominance. Cut out the Dementus side quests, let Sam Neill have the role, he's already set up for it in the film, and you can still have Furiosa having a beef with him, her revenge, and lose a half an hour of extraneous crap with a guy who's as scary as a seagull carnival barker pecking at a French fry. And I know people are going to say, it's a Mad Max movie, there are always holes, and I'm thinking too hard. But, okay, where I was able to enjoy the previous movies for the spectacle, here the action is somewhat haunting. Miller always said he wanted these movies to function as silent films, where if you strip out all sound, it still works. So he played with the frame rates to ramp up the tension, and that's why certain scenes felt more like adrenaline-fueled hallucinations rather than a traditional action flick. And that's awesome! I like to see directors breaking molds. But here, it's like a kid playing at Buster Keaton without knowing why Buster Keaton was Buster Keaton. I wasn't surprised to find that Miller switched cinematographers between movies. Everything is flat and uninteresting, and the frame rate shifts are inconsistently used at best. A branch growing to show the passage of time, and a slow push into close-up where Dementus was borderline hyperventilating was the only time it really worked. These are great moments that give you a feeling of the world and the characters' inner struggles and turmoil. But the rest of the time, it looked like a Marilyn Manson music video. Actually, most of these ideas are from Manson's Beautiful People. Did no one notice that before? Anyway, is the movie any good? Well, I cared about the hero's plight, and in that way they did their job. But as a Mad Max movie, it's the stale leftovers of a franchise that came from nothing, rose to exhausting, exhilarating heights, and has settled comfortably into better than fine. I'd recommend streaming it at a discount and avoid the candy bag rustling nose pickers that I dealt with in the theater. Well, those are just my thoughts. How about you? Is Blandiosa a Mad Max meh? Good, bad, or ugly? Let me know in the comments, like if you want to see more reviews, and until next time, happy viewing.